Let's continue our reading. Last time, we stopped at this hypothetical scenario. We started from considering a man from a prison with everything being bounded. Yeah? The eyes is blindfolded, the mouth is gagged, the hand is tied, and then we started to release him one by one, unbound his blindfold, untie his ropes, and then remove the gag. Yeah. And then he's still in prison, and then we started to release him from prison and then integrate him to a middle-class householder. Yeah, but he still needs to work, and then we take it a step further. We remove him from his burden of duties. We put him finally at the apex of the conventional definition of freedom. We put him upon the throne of a world monarch, a universal emperor exercising sovereignty over all the earth. Yeah. Place him in a magnificent palace surrounded by 100 wives, possessed of gold, land, gems, endowed with the most sublime pleasures of the five senses. All power is his, all enjoyment, fame, glory, and wealth. He needs only express his wish, his will, for it to be taken as command. In this scenario, no obstruction to his freedom of license remains. He can do whatever he wants to do. But we're still asking the important question: is he truly free? Let's read on to find out what the Dharma has to say about this scenario. Three kinds of feeling have been pointed out by the Buddha: pleasant feeling, painful feeling, and neutral feeling. In other words, feeling which is neither pleasant nor painful. These three classes exhaust the totality of feeling, and one feeling of one class must be present on any given occasion of experience. Again, three mental factors have been singled out by the Buddha as the subjective counterparts of the three classes of feeling and described by him as anusaya, latent tendencies, which have been lying dormant in the subconscious mental continua of sentient beings since beginningless of time. Always ready to crop up into a state of manifestation when an appropriate stimulus is encountered, and to subside again into the state of dormancy when the impact of the stimulus has worn off. These three mental factors are lust, raga, repugnance, patiga, and ignorance, avijja, psychological equivalents of the unwholesome roots of greed, lobha, hatred, dosa, and delusion, moha. When a worldling with a mind untrained in the higher course of mental discipline taught by the Buddha experiences these three kinds of feeling: a pleasant feeling, then the latent tendency to lust springs up in response, a desire to possess and enjoy the object serving as stimulus for the pleasant feeling. When a worldling experiences a painful feeling, then the latent tendency to repugnance comes into play, an aversion towards the cause of pain. And the last one, when a worldling experiences a neutral feeling, then the latent tendency to ignorance, present but recessive on occasions of lust and aversion, rises to prominence, shrouding the worldling's consciousness in the cloak of dull apathy. how do we pronounce this? Apathy, yeah.
Apathy.
Apathy, okay. In a cloak of dull apathy. Okay, this two paragraph explains about the three kinds of feelings: pleasant, painful, and neutral, and how this feeling will give rise to the latent tendency. Yeah. Yeah. So from pleasant feeling, latent tendency to lust springs up in response. For painful feeling, latent tendency to repugnance or aversion. For neutral feeling, the latent tendency to ignorance will springs up. Okay, let's continue reading. Sister Xing Hui, would you like to read?
On whatever occasion, the three latent tendencies to lust, repugnance, and ignorance are provoked by their corresponding feelings from their dormant condition into a state of activity. If a man does not make an effort to dispel them, does not strive to restrain, remove, and abandon them, and bring them to naught, then they will persist in consciousness. If, as they persist in consciousness, he repeatedly yields to them, endorses them, and continues to cling to them, they will gather momentum, come to growth, and like a ball of flame, flung upon a haystack, flare up from their initial phase as feeble impulses into powerful obsessions, which usurp from a man his capacity for self-control. Then, even if a man be, like our hypothetical subject, an emperor over the earth, he is inwardly no longer his own master, but a servant at the bidding of his own defilements of mind.
Thanks, Sister Xing Hui. This paragraph explains further that if we keep yielding to our tendencies to lust, repugnance, and ignorance, we keep endorsing them, we keep indulging them, continues to cling to them, they will gather momentum, come to growth, like a ball of flame flung upon a haystack, flare out from the initial phase as feeble impulses into powerful obsessions. Let's take a look at this one, which assert from man his capacity for self-control. Usurp. Meaning, take a position of power or importance, illegally or by force. Seize, take over. So, powerful obsessions which take over from a man from his capacity of self-control. Thus, even if a man, like our hypothetical subject, an emperor over the earth, king of the world, is inwardly no longer his own master, but a servant at the bidding of his own defilements of mind. Let's continue reading again. Sister Choi Kwan, would you like to read?
Under the dominance of lust, he is drawn to the pleasant. Under the dominance of hate, he is repelled by the painful. Under the dominance of delusion, He is confused by the neutral. He is bent up by happiness, bent down by sorrow, elated by gain, honor and praise, dejected by loss, dishonor and blame. Even though he perceives that a particular course of action can lead only to his harm, he is powerless to avoid it. Even though he knows that an alternative course of action is clearly to his advantage, he is unable to pursue it. Swept on by the current of unabandoned defilements, he is driven from existence to existence through the ocean of samsara, with its wave of birth and death, its whirlpools of misery and despair. Outwardly, he may be a ruler over all the world, but in the court of consciousness, he is still a prisoner. In terms of license, he may be completely free, but in terms of spiritual autonomy, he remains a victim of bondage in its most desperate form, bondage to the workings of a defiled mind. Thank you.
Thanks, Sister Chekwan. Under the dominance of lust, he's drawn to the pleasant. Under the dominance of hate, he's repelled by the painful. Under delusion, he's confused by the neutral. This paragraph concludes, in terms of license, he may be completely free, but in terms of spiritual autonomy, he remains a victim of bondage in its most desperate form. Bondage to the workings of a defiled mind. In contrast, now let's take a look at the spiritual freedom. Okay. Sister Billy, would you like to read this paragraph?
Thank you. Spiritual freedom, as the opposite of this condition of bondage, must therefore mean freedom from lust, hatred, and delusion. When lust, hatred, and delusion are abandoned in a man, cut off at the root so that they no longer remain even in latent form, then a man finds for himself a seat of autonomy from which he can never be dethroned, a position of mastery from which he can never be shaken. Even though he be a medicine gathering his alms from house to house, he is still a king. Even though he be locked behind bars of steel, he is inwardly free. He is now sovereign over his own mind, and as such, over the whole universe. For nothing in the universe can take from him that deliverance of heart, which is his inalienable possession. He dwells in the world among the things of the world, yet stands in perfect poise above the world's ebb and flow. If pleasant objects come within range of his perception, he does not yearn for them. If painful objects come into range, he does not recoil from them. He looks upon both with equanimity and notes their rise and fall. Towards the pairs of opposites which keep the world in rotation, he is without concern. The cycle of attraction and repulsion, he has broken at its base. A lump of gold and a lump of clay are to his eyes the same. Praise and song are to his ears empty sounds. He abides in the freedom he has won through long and disciplined effort. He is free from suffering, for with their defilements uprooted, no more can sorrow or grief fall upon his heart. There remains only that perfect bliss, unsullied by any trace of craving.
Thanks, Sister Billy, for reading this long paragraph.
Thank you.
So this paragraph, in contrast with the freedom of license, starts to explain how spiritual freedom looks like. If pleasant objects comes within range of his perception, he does not yearn from them. If painful objects comes, he does not recoil. He looks upon both with equanimity and notes their rise and fall. Okay, let's read on further this paragraph. Sister Shomi, would you like to read?
He is free from fear, from the chill of anxiety, which even kings know in their palaces, protected by bodyguards inside and out. And he is free from disease, from the sickness of the passions, vexing and feverish, that tie the mind in knots, from sickness of samsara with its rounds of defilement, action and result. He passes his days in peace, pervading the world with a mind of boundless compassion, enjoying the bliss of emancipation, or teaching fellow wayfarers the path he himself has followed to the goal, in the calm, certain knowledge that for him, the beginningless trail of repeated births and deaths has been brought to a close, that he has reached the pinnacle of holiness and effected the cessation of all becoming.
Thanks, Sister Shomi. This is quite an image. He is free from fear, from the chill of anxiety, which even kings know in their palace, protected by hundreds of bodyguards inside out. In fact, they are the most fearful because they know anytime an assassin can sneak in and try to kill the kings. In contrast with this man who is free from defilements, he's also free from fear, even without any bodyguards. And this also aligns with Sai Kiang's answer 2 days ago, that he is finally freed from repeated births and deaths. Yeah, so this is one angle to look at it. Okay, one last paragraph. Sister Sai Kiang, would you like to read?
Thank you. In its fullness, the freedom to which the Buddha points as the goal of his teaching can only be enjoyed by him who has made the realization of the goal a matter of his own living experience. But just as salt lends its taste to whatever food it is used to season, so does the taste of freedom pervade the entire range of the doctrine and discipline proclaimed by the Buddha. Its beginning, its middle, and its end. Whatever our degree of progress may be in the practice of the Dharma, to the extent may the taste of freedom be enjoyed. It must always be borne in mind, however, that true freedom, the inward autonomy of the mind, does not descend as a gift of grace. It can only be won by the practice of the path to freedom, the Noble Eightfold Path.
Thanks, Sister Sai Kiang. Okay, so this paragraph concludes again the freedom as the core result of practicing the Dharma. The taste of freedom pervades the entire range of the doctrine and discipline proclaimed by the Buddha, its beginning, its middle, and its end. Whatever our degree of practice in the Dharma, to that extent, may the taste of freedom be enjoyed. we must always remember that true freedom, the inward autonomy of mind, does not descend as a gift of grace, but it can only be won through practice. Practice of what? Practice of the path to freedom, which is back again to the Noble Eightfold Path. Okay, so here we conclude our essay. Any additional questions or comments? Let me scroll up a little bit. Okay, if not, let's do a dedication. 愿消三障诸烦恼，愿得智慧真明，不愿世世常行菩萨道。阿弥陀佛。Till we meet again, may we be guided by the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. I would like to extend dedication to the people who are currently suffering in the current war. Let's share the merits to the Devas, the Buddhas, the Nagas, the dragon spirits, and to all beings, wishing them to rejoice in the merits, to protect the Buddha Sasana, to protect the world, to protect ourselves and others. May those in suffering be free from suffering. May those in fear be free from fear. May those in sorrow be free from sorrow. May all living beings also be thus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Have a peaceful Sunday ahead. Thanks, everyone.
How are you, Marcel? Are you better?
Slightly. I feel some heatiness still in my throat, so probably drink more water. Eat more soupy stuff, maybe.
Yeah. Take some vitamins, drink more water. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Thanks for asking.
Take care.
Thank you.
Take care. What happened to
Bye.
you?
I feel a little bit unwell.
Ah,
Bye bye.
take care. Huh?
Thank you.
Yeah.